Agriculture with the man Banky and Company alongside Yason Tafari. It's your weekly educational show. And tune in. It's inspirational, educational, and you won't want to miss it. It's everything agriculture. Hey, this man Easy inviting you to tune in. It's all about everything agriculture with the man Banky and Company alongside Yason Tafari. It's your weekly educational show. And tune in. It's inspirational, educational, and you won't want to miss it. It's everything agriculture. Hey, this man Easy inviting you to tune in. It's all about everything agriculture with the man Banky and Company alongside Yason Tafari. It's your weekly educational show. And tune in. It's inspirational, educational, and you won't want to miss it. It's everything agriculture.
That's what we wanted to know, what the reason when it start. Okay. Yes, good evening and welcome to the Everything Agriculture Show. It's another Friday evening and it's the last Friday of the end of April. Yes, so we're in the second quarter. All right. Good evening to the folks listening to the sound of my voice. I'm your host, Banky, and now the host, Yason Tafari, all the way in California, and listening to the Everything Agriculture Show. This evening we'll have a guest in the second segment from 8 o'clock. Today was a big historic moment where they had the opening of the Medical Cannabis Authority, License Authority opening. So we'll speak on that later on with Mrs.JihanWilliams Knight. She'll be our guest. So that will be her debut, first time and everything. I'm looking forward for that discussion or reasoning with Yason and myself, with Miss Knight. Also, we'll be talking about what's going on globally. There's a trade war going on, which Yason and myself have been speaking about when it comes to growing your food and the importance way before COVID time came in. And we still really, this time, we're in a different COVID too, where everything now going up sky high, even building a house, even buying a vehicle, even whatever you think about, even if you think about it, it's going to cost you. That's just reality. And the most basic thing we need is going to be food. So we'll talk about the tariffs, food, what plans will be put in place and what things should the leaders put in place. And that doesn't mean you have to listen to Yason and myself, but we just give recommendation. So let me say good evening to the folks in the neighboring islands, but first the people in Oli and Liamega, which means St. Kitts and Nevis, and the folks in Sabre, Statia, St. Bart's, Martinique, Guadeloupe, Antigua and Barbuda, Montserrat, also the folks in St. Vincent and Grenadines and throughout the other Windward Islands, and the folks up in the diaspora, North America, Canada, folks over in Europe, England, Spain, Morocco, folks all over in Thailand. We have people, students over there studying a lot of agriculture same way. And one of the things we ask is a lot of females studying more into the agriculture sector than males. I'm not sure what's going on with our males right now. I'm not sure if our males want to turn females or whatever is going on, but something they just start drinking a different type of water because the females them out doing the male them, you know, going on with that, you know. But yes, and anyway, agriculture is not gender biased, and females should encourage to do the sciences subject, just as the male do. Everything is a balance. So it's not what I can do, a female can do. That kind of stereotype system need to go out the door. Because you can't tell who grow a banana tree or who grow a tomato. It doesn't show is what you see there here is a good farmer, and anyone can do it, male or female. That's just how it is. Also, this evening, as I say, we have a second guest, and we will have a lot of discussion going on here because it's the end of the month, and we'll be talking cannabis, but the same time we're talking food security. Because nothing is more important than earth when it comes to clean water and food. So we've been duped. All the leaders from since independence have failed us, and the R can't say they not fail us because the evidence is there to show we are not exporting nothing. Whatever is exported is companies from overseas in the US doing some manufacturing here that they do when they go out and seek when they close down the sugar industry and stuff like that. Go and seek other manufacturing company or they invest in the CBI or tourism or real estate, and we can see where a lot of liars And you hear me speak about this all the time. Yes, son, you hear me speak about it. We speak about this all the time. That we're being canned, and you hear Ralph Galzans, not Mr. Ganzal, in St. Vincent speaking about the corruption amongst the CBI and who agent and who accountant and who lawyer and so on, is who contractor and who this. Is an alliance. And common sense, even the blind can see what's going on. The money is circulating. That's why we see none of these politicians want to touch it, because a lot of their friends and people who they know on the everyday basis involved in these things. They're selling out our land, our patrimony. Even just speaking this up there by the Hamilton Museum in Hamilton. The Hamilton Mill, the sugar mill, it is owned by the expat. I was told the vanilla, the lady who owned the vanilla, to open up a cafe and gift shop. Well, what happened to tourism? Well, tourism can fix up the building and get a cafe and a gift shop there and rent it to a local person, a native. Everybody got passport now, so let me say native, indigenous, because people like tell you they got passport, and passport mean nothing to me. Me remind you, you're not indigenous and you're not a native. There's a difference. Everybody got passport. So yes, and it just to show something's wrong with us, and it's a new time where the people are saying things what it is, and they're fed up of all these government, and not the government, the wayward politics and politicians, and I must say those parties that over 90 years old and 60 years old or 50 years old, but they care about them no more. You know what I'm saying? It's a different era. Them things are done with. The president already been said in the car, we've been speaking about this, we can do the right thing. And a young man, just what we're speaking of all the time, have manifest, I guess he pulled the frequency out of the universe, and here we're speaking about this thing. And he just show it just in front of the face. And they want to shut the blind, not speak about what he's doing, but they're giving away 5,500 passport just to build a prison for 30 million. But they all going to go to billions, so all the money going. But if you have to buy sugar cake from you, when me come back and give the money the sugar cake, me going to send the sugar cake to all this place over the season, then your money come back when you want it. No. You give me extra free exchange, disapprove, you pay your fees and then I sign off. That's it. Pay your fees first, then me sign off. And me give me money and that's it. But that's where it is right there. But you got to come back to the drawing board. So now we have all these high taxes and going on, yes, son. I recommend to the government, number one, any food, any barrel, any boxes coming into the citizens, the natives, they should be charged $1 or 50 cents, and that's it. Not even the poor charges should be charged. Otherwise, and you need to drop off the VAT, because we don't own nobody no money. All them high taxes over there need to go down. They just need to go. And you must invest in agriculture. You're not going to choice. You can try not to and be running away from the bill. You must do it. You're not going to choice. That's just reality. You must build small factories to manufacture stuff. You must develop large acres of land. These are the reality to employ people and not just trained people, trained plumbers, people who understand irrigation and pay them well. You're not going to choice. That's just reality. And these don't need no rocket scientists, don't need nobody with no degree on paper and can't do the work. You need real hands-on people to be employed who understand the environment and who are going to do the work. You must drill wells. These are things you just must be done. You just got to drill wells. You can look for a quick fix and so you're going to find desalination plant, but then you're going to damage your coral reefs, got all that water and the sludge that you take back, all the salt, and you get it. If you're supposed to get, so which means if you want 50 gallon a day, whatever, 50,000 gallon a day, it means you have to produce 100,000 gallon a day. And you get 50% of what it is. That is a reverse osmosis situation. It is. You get half the amount. You see what I mean? So you waste half the water, and you start damage the coral reefs. But it's a non, and it's expensive to maintain, and you can't even maintain a regular building. You're gonna maintain something that you use the water. You see what I mean? So these things just don't make no sense when you can drill well. Remember, yes, and the previous last year before Culturama, he gonna drill 9 wells and I told you, he can't do it. And he play an assessor, he can't do it. Impossible to do. And educated people with all these PhDs and all this, who support the premier, listen to the premier talk this nonsense, and know these things are impossible. Impossible to do. Still not done yet. but also like you're gonna take, you see, so all these things are just like the hospital and Indian castle and all these things, no accountability. So the fish things from the head right up to the head, to the directors and the PS and them who just tell not want to move the country forward. But yes, son, good evening to you, and that's just me starting off thing.
Yeah,
Because we dealing with
well,
accountability, you know. We dealing with
as
accountability, you
they
know,
would
yes,
say,
and we not butt up things here, you know. We dealing with accountability because you want to tell the young people and them to be responsible and to do this and to do that, but then you waste taxpayer, the same young people taxpayers' money. You're wasting it.
well, you have, as the old people would say, you have started with a mouthful, you know? And so I want to say good evening to Oli and Layamiga and the entire Eastern Caribbean, all the folks who are listening via YouTube and Twitch and Facebook and wherever you are around the world, whether it's in England, America, Africa, China, Switzerland, Czechoslovakia, it doesn't matter where you are. It's a pleasure to have you on a Friday evening. It's the start of a weekend, and you could be doing all kinds of things, but you have opted to be here with us, and we truly appreciate your presence, and we look forward to engaging you in the discussion. So those who are logged in, feel free to share the link, and feel free to also make your comments. We do follow most of the comments here on the Facebook page, and here on this platform, we do respond to the comments. We do usually acknowledge the comments, and if there are any questions or any issues that are brought into to play, we deal with it. The number to call in if you're interested in calling in and being a part of the program is 1-869-662-7196. That's the number to call in if you want to call in and be a part of the program. I'll probably type it into the comment section in a bit. But Banky, it's really a pleasure to be here this evening. Usually at the end of the month, we usually discuss the topic of cannabis. So this program is called Everything Agriculture. But on the last, at the end of the month, we usually
Mm-hmm.
do the cannabis program. So we focus on cannabis. And interestingly enough, today happens to be the day that the Medical Cannabis Authority has opened up on sin kits. And so that is, a very huge and historic moment in the Federation where cannabis is concerned. And I am happy that, we have reached thus far. We are looking forward to, in a few moments, having a conversation with the chair of the Medical Cannabis Authority in the personality of Mrs.JihanWilliams Knight, and she should be on with us here from 8
Think it's
p.m.
licensing, like I think it's licensing authority, licensing, because they will do the licensing part, right?
all
Yes, that's
all
what
of
it.
whatever
Yes,
all of
yes.
whatever she is responsible for, we will find that out, and we'll find out how far things are with them and what to expect now that the office is open and all of that. So we will get an opportunity to ask all that. So for those of you who are curious, be sure to log in and be informed, because you're going to be getting it from what we would say in local parlance, from the horse's mouth, right? And so we are looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to engage on the topic of cannabis generally, and especially um, cannabis in relation to Nevis, because seemingly there is a deafening silence when it comes to, the issue of cannabis on Nevis. So we can see a lot of what's happening on St. Kitts. In more recent times, we would have had an activity on Antigua where they celebrated the 420, and we would have had uh, folks from St. Kitts and Nevis making representation in Antigua at that event. And the following on the heels of that, now we are seeing the Medical Cannabis Authority opening up on St. Kitts. And so we are really looking forward to hearing, more of what to expect and so on. Now, one of the things that, we have been battling with a little bit, and I think we would get that cleared up this evening as well, is the fact that when the move was made for cannabis to be decriminalized, it was not only decriminalized under the premise of medical use. There were three wide categories that were discussed and were addressed. They were namely the medical cannabis side, the recreational side, and also the spiritual or religious side of cannabis. What we are seeing and hearing so far in relation to the government's responses, so far it's more push for the medicinal side. From what I'm gathering, and I really have to do some more follow up in that regard. I guess maybe after this discussion, I might be able to have the chair maybe connect me with the minister who is responsible for that other side, so we could engage that discussion as well in relation to the recreational and recreational and spiritual side or religious side of cannabis. And from what I understand, that is under the Ministry of Ecclesiastic Affairs, and that ministry falls under the purview of um, Minister Jeffrey Hanley. And so we would have to seek to engage him and find out who, if it's not him directly, is dealing with that issue, who in his ministry is dealing with that. And so we can get more clarity where that is concerned. And so I really look forward to engage the chair this evening in regards to the medicinal side, so we can be clear on some of those issues and what is the expectations and so on moving forward in that regards. But also we would have to banky carve out some time to address the spiritual and recreational side. I also would like to be sure or to be clear if it is in relation to cannabis, if it is only the medicinal side that falls under the purview of the Ministry of Agriculture, and if the other aspects, as we are to understand, falls under another ministry and how that is, um, you know, organized and so on. A lot of these things sometimes, Banky, end up being the way it is because of lack of proper consultations with the masses, and some of who would be um, um, affected in some of these areas. That's on one side of it. The other side also, I must also lay the blame too on ourselves sometimes, because when the discussions were being made in relation to the recreational side and so on, and when you had Rastafari seeking to meet with, those in authority and so on, you might not have had as much support as you you should have. Um,
So,
even in our communities, in relation to some of the Rastafari
mhm.
organizations, in
So,
some of the Rastafari
anyway.
organizations that we have, um, you find when it's time for meetings and, it's time to really address certain issues, you don't find the numbers. And this is something, Banky, that we find a lot in, and it's not just within Rastafari, it is within groups and organizations on a whole, where I find Nevis is concerned. Well, I think it's a Nevis too, but I speak to Nevis because I'm from Nevis. Because even within agriculture, um, you find you may have a Nevis Growers organization, or you may have whatever other kind of co-op. When it's time to have a
Mhm.
meeting, you might only find 2 members or 3 members and so forth, and that kind of thing. And then when you have an agenda like this that you have to meet, and then decisions have to be made. And then after decisions are made, some people are going to be offended because they might not have been a part of the discussion when they had an opportunity to, but they didn't. So on the two sides, I have to look at it on both sides. However, in relation to Rastafari and their struggle and their quest and being recognized on St. Kitts and Nevis, which is a move that even Jamaica at this point is still struggling with, because they kind of did not do enough to carve out a niche market for the Rastafari community. Even as we speak, Rastafari is still faced with being locked up and harassed for cannabis when they move into Rastafari events like groundings and whether it's whatever celebrations they may have. They're being charged, taken to court, and even though they would have had certain things said in the house by the minister, the police are saying, well, they know about that, and the judge is saying they know about that, and these kind of things. And so people are still being charged. Now, we know that certain things have been passed here on St. Kitts and Nevis, but then we still have issues where people are complaining that, police are still coming and pulling up the trees, and people are still being stopped and harassed. And so a lot of these things still need to be clarified and dealt with and so on. So I really do look forward to having that discussion in that regards, this evening. And I really look forward to us getting clarity in relation to the recreational side, as you say, Banky, that's our area really, this medicinal thing. Because for me, that's, as you mentioned earlier, Banky, like for me, I share the same view as well, because almost all of the plants, that we know of have some sort of medicinal use or purpose. We use them in medicinally, but we don't call them medicine. We don't label them as medicine like that. But you find now that here is this plant that, first of all, in the first instance, it was wrongfully classified. It was placed in a category that claims it has no accepted medicinal use or purpose, and it is the only plant that is in that category. And I say is because it is still there on the books federally, even here in America, on the books as a Schedule 1 drug. And the definition of a Schedule 1 drug states that it is a substance or a chemical that is deemed to have no accepted medicinal use or purpose. You could go and look it up. You don't have to accept what I am saying. Don't believe me. You all have gadgets in your hand. Google, ask Alexa, ask Siri, whatever. If I am telling any lies, a Schedule 1 drug states that it's a substance or chemical that is deemed to have no accepted medicinal use or purpose. And that is where they place cannabis. When you look into that category, Banky, the only plant in that category.
What the purpose of rum?
Well, but rum is still in a different category. They have not rum in the category that they put cannabis in. I just want to show you as dangerous as rum is. Rum is not in that category. Rum is still in a lower classification, but they put cannabis in that classification. Now, here's what I am saying. That is where cannabis is. Now, you had the challenge over the years, Rastafari been saying all the time, but cannabis is good, nothing wrong with cannabis. We using the plant, we use the whole plant. We're not in a separation with no THC and no CBD and all of these things that you are coming with. It is just a plant. If you all want to go through all of that, that is you. Mm-hmm. If we use soursop, you all call it graviola, and you all say it has all of these different things, and you all want to take it and take out all these compounds and do all of these things. That's you. But leave us with our plant. So here's it. You said that it had no accepted medicinal use or purpose. So you criminalized it. You prohibited it. You put your people to fight it in all different ways. Police, army, everybody kick down people door 3 o'clock in the morning for a plant. Make the whole world get so fearful about this plant. Then you turn around and you are now saying that you are decriminalizing it. And the premise that you are using for decriminalization is that it has medicinal use or purpose. Yet, though you are arguing and you are decriminalizing it based on that premise, you still have it on the books as a Schedule 1 drug, which states it has no accepted medicinal use or purpose. So you see the hypocrisy that we are dealing with? That is part of the hypocrisy that we are faced with on a day-to-day basis as we struggle with addressing this plan. Now, with all that, the lies that was sold on the plant, about the plant, the propaganda that was spread, how they use fear and intimidation to get people to, even up to today, now that the plant is decriminalized, there are people who still don't want to have anything to do with the plant, all because of this trauma over all these years of selling blatant lies to the people. Because you can't call it nothing else but lies, Banky, because if you're saying that it is a Schedule 1 drug, it has no accepted medicinal use or purpose, but no, you're saying I'm going to decriminalize it because it can be used as medicine. No,
Because I
the
found out,
thing with
yes,
that,
and they found it out. The scientists found out that the plants is good now.
yeah, and the scientists now wants to be able to make money from it. And so you find even here within the government realms that that is the angle that they opt to choose to push forward as well. Because remember, when even the case that really brought the government to take action in relation to cannabis wasn't a case necessarily for medicinal use or purpose, it was a case for private use in your private residence, and it was for religious and or sacramental and or recreational purposes the argument was based on. So that case that was taken to the court was not on that agenda. However, after doing the research and so on, the government would have felt that pushing the medicinal side is the side where they can make revenue from. So for them, and for most of these, and it's not just in St. Kitts and Nevis, but most of these people who would have sought to push the agenda ahead is and was based on money, being able to see how they can capitalize off of the industry. Nothing to do with the other side, because as a matter of fact, you find most of these people who are now even pushing the medical side fight and oppose smoking and using cannabis. What? Like their life depend on it? And so if it was left for that, I'm sure a lot of them would not have really even sought to bring the agenda to the fore. So like I said, Banky, I am grateful still that we are at this stage. Whatever they have done so far, we need to be clear on where they are, and also Rastafari on a whole too. I think really need to step up and speak out some more, and really zoom in on the recreational and or spiritual religious use. Now, Banky, another point when it comes to the Rastafari side, I think that was and is one of the areas that I find a little bit gray, because what would have happened is seemingly the door that is open for Rastafari to some extent is based on the religion side, and I guess maybe that is why it is placed on the ecclesiastic, because it was a provision that was made not specifically for Rastafari, but for religious organizations. And Rastafari would have fallen, or some of them would have fallen into that category, because they are religious organizations that are part of the Rastafari community. However, the little issue would come in where they are members of the Rastafari community who are not a part of any Rastafari or spiritual or religious organization. They practice their form of spirituality within themselves, which they have a right to. And so that is a little issue there that I think would need a little bit of clarity as well. So I really look forward to us really having more engagement and really looking to hear more from the chair also in relation to how much more is going to be done in terms of PRO and education and so on and the issue. I do hear a few things on the radio and so in more recent times. We saw that website or web page that they have also up with information that starts to give you a little bit of idea of what's going on and so forth. On Nevis, however, we are not hearing anything. And Banky, you're on the ground there. You tell me what you're hearing from the Ministry of Agriculture, who is responsible, so far as we understand, especially for the medicinal side. Are you aware if any of the representatives from Nevis were a part of? Well, I guess we'll have to ask the chair when she gets on later on, if any member of the Nevis government or agriculture or whoever was represented as a part of the opening today. We really, for me, I really want to know why on Nevis there is that lull where there's, nobody really saying anything. The only person I would have heard say anything in relation to cannabis is the premier, which he believes that we should really go for legalization. That is what he's saying. And that's what I must say. That's what he's saying. So, Banky, anything from your end that you would have heard or seen in terms of that kind of movement to encourage the cannabis industry on Nevis?
Well, before me touch that, just let me say the food and all is our medicine. That is just basic. The papaya, the mangoes. That's what we eat the food to extract its nutrients and its protein and its fiber, amino acids and all these different. Without these things, we don't exist. So it's not just the plant. All plants are medicinal plant and all plants are good because they provide oxygen for us, for our survival. We breathe out carbon dioxide as a species. You see what I mean? So all plants are good. So we don't differentiate, or this plant is a bad plant. Well, we understand that when the same plant, you need it, and plus you have more plants in the seawater than upon land. You see? So this is why the seawater is important. When we're sending all these sludge when it comes to desalination plants into our ocean, you're really destroying the whole ecosystem, which you're destroying your food source. So when it comes to planting, plus, me not upon this medical thing, me never upon it. Me not agree with it. Because we done is just a next scheme again for a group and alliance of people to make a lot of money and bringing companies from overseas, and then you know, land to go food, virgin. The land they go food, we're gonna find land to give people to go herb. Well, rule number one, if we're gonna plant, when they're planting outdoors, especially because most gonna want large acreage. You see what I mean? Companies don't buy next to them, so they want acreage of land. It's one thing with people coming in with country, they don't want no little piece of land, and they want hundreds of acres of land. So they're gonna neighbors. And then the future development and all kind of want to no nonsense. And somebody the same alliances, they're gonna get the work. My thing is, if you're gonna be planting herb, you must plant a percentage of food. Because we have a food crisis from ever since, We never get out of the food crisis, That because people got money to buy food and the food keep going up and up and up. And if you're going to be planting herb, my thing when it comes to the soil is always protecting the soil and the type of chemicals. Cause they will use chemicals, a lot of chemicals too. We don't use Gramax Zone coming in, not the government, they're selling these dangerous chemicals naturally. So we never bring in the next crop to go grow again. But what kind of chemical coming to go for that crop in the environment? So why the pesticide board is going to come in when they don't allow all these dangerous ones done here already? 7 not even supposed to sell here, because 7 is one of the most toxic things there is. thing that's supposed to come in the country. 7, and most people have 7 in the house who listen to the sound of my voice. I have used it and continue to use it, but don't know how toxic it is. You see what I mean? Because they're not educated about these things. And a lot of these spray they use in the house, the BAP, and some of those, some of them is more toxic than BAP, but a lot of them now is been a different, is much safer and stuff like that. But all those are insecticide that you spray, right? So my thing when it comes to growing herb is a monocrop. You get into monoculture again, on a large scale. So my thing is about soil degradation. So if you're going to grow in herb and you got a 10-acre plot and you just grow herb, but what is going to happen to you? You're going to deplete your soil, you're going to damage your soil and up with diseases. You're not going to get nothing out of the plant. The plant is going to come down with fungus and different stuff and this. You understand? That's just the reality.
Well,
so,
Banky,
how you're going to control, yes.
That is one side of it, but the other side is if and when you get into the bringing in of the introducing of companies from outside, what you're going to find is that a lot of these companies are not necessarily going to be into this earth-grown thing because they already have a market. And out here, right here where I am in California, I could tell you that
Of course, I understand that, but some going to still be outdoors.
Look how good it is. It is corn right now. Like you man hardly could get that sell. Everybody right now, even let me not say everybody, because there's still gonna be that niche market of people like myself who's gonna want earth grown.
Okay.
Right? But
so the question is, yes, sir. Let me simple it down to kindergarten stuff. You go your herb, me go my herb in my studio here, under lights. Me go my herb outside upon my porch. Me go in my garden there. So, what the difference with the herb? Explain. What the difference with the herb?
The difference is they will tell you it's under controlled environment.
Yes.
With not using soil. They make sure the water.
Stop there again. Stop there again. Stop there again. You're not using soil, because we deal with science now, and nature now. You're not using soil. Good. And what is soil? We'll explain soil, because soil having organic content, having microbes, billions of microbes. Soil, more soil with your fingernail having billions of microbes. You understand? Billions. All right? Good. Which means, and soil is alive in a dead. You're alive. So then now, they want to use different medium, which is sterilized, pro-mix, perlite. Then I got no nutrients. It's dead. Then I got in our life nothing. And then you tell me that then, so that then now, you got to add nutrients all the time. Right? And you tell me that then now going to be better than the soil that is alive. And you flip. How is that possible?
You might say it's not better, but what they're saying is that they're able to determine how much of whatever is in it exactly, what it got,
slavery too,
and under what condition it was grown.
Slavery was legal, slavery was good, and slavery for your master, that was good too.
Yeah, but they're gonna tell you, too, the conditions. So like outdoors, when the bird pass and the bird drop on it, and the monkey pass and the goat pass, so when your cannabis is inside, all these, they don't have to worry about these pests and all these other things that are on it. It's in a clean environment. So these are the arguments that are being presented.
Watch it. Stop there again.
You call it BS. You call it BS, but watch it
again. Stop there again. So not because I'm inside here growing the virgin, you will get pest and disease inside there, along with this fungus, the mold.
But they have no problem in spending the money.
So how the pest get in there?
They have no problem in spending the money.
They're just the pest. Then the pest? How the pest get in there?
No, they have no problem in spending the money and getting rid of the pest. Whether it's biological, some companies use biological. Like the company that I work for in Canada, they spend millions of dollars on bringing in bugs, different types of bugs that will eat those bugs that affect.
Check this out, right?
You know what I mean?
This is what this is.
Uh-huh.
This is what this is. This is selling material, selling lights, selling growing medium, selling pots, selling fertilizers, selling all this, or is a whole industry of selling stuff. And you have to, so you have to be buying from all these companies. So you're just a trade. When you can plant within what then I got. So it's just like soon you have to start go banana inside then inside a control environment and avocados and all these different stuff and can go in the
Well,
soil then.
they are already doing that. No need for soil anymore, Banky. It's a soilless culture. That's what it
So
is.
let's go.
And the reality is, Banky, out here, and that's what
Yeah,
I'm saying. As much as we want to argue that we have these, nice soil and all of these things, them man didn't care about that. Them man gonna got the
of course, it
system,
is fine.
and they're gonna got their
Of course, that is
hydroponic
fine.
system, and
Fine.
they have all that sorted out. And then that
Of
way,
course, that's fine.
now with that in mind, what happens with that? People now would claim that they feel safer with that because they can tell them exactly how it was done, and they feel like, okay, well, it was more indoor and all that, and and so
So if
clean
that is the case,
sanitation.
so if this is the case, something can be clean if at the end of the day, when more than 80%, the biggest problem in the medical industry is pesticides, residue, high toxic. So you can't be a safe environment when the evidence shows is high use of pesticides, residue, dangerous, highly toxic. So how is that?
So that would be for those
environment?
companies. That would be for those companies who invest in those toxic chemicals. But what about those companies who don't invest in those?
But he said, remember he said up to over 85%, that's a high out of 100% of the industries, over 80% is high. So you see what I mean?
Right.
So in that differentiate which company you think I'm going to say the clean, so you know who them test. Them who say the organic, I test toxic. You see what I mean? So it means everybody involved in this. So this is the thing. So how is this thing you push something that is clean, but yet it's so heavily toxic, and these things are reaching down to our shores through the Caribbean, and this generation down here going crazy over these things. Just like food, you don't know the food is grown. Something coming from, you don't know how long it take to reach here, how long it come from, which place, wherever. But then these are what you're going crazy over, and not holding on to your local stuff. At least it's you see, and then you have to know who growing your stuff, because people, even here, people are gonna use toxic stuff. That's just reality, and that is what this show is all about. You gotta know your farmer. You gotta visit the farm, see how clean the farm is, how to organize it. If you eat egg, visit the full farm them. See how where the feces them go, what they do with the dead foal. You just eat things I know you eat. Go answer the operation, then you'll figure, man, you know what? I think this is safe to eat. I'll make a conscious decision, but me not really eat these things here. Visit them. Because I guarantee you visit all of these places, you wouldn't be eating what you're eating. These are the reality. You see what I mean? So when it comes to the cannabis, health is key. You cannot compromise safety, You cannot. Can you have, just how you see man a spray go back zone to a plant, the tomatoes or the vegetables. Man, I spray the same way to put the cannabis plant, the cannabis work the same way too, With this here herbicides them, same thing, because it's farming. So what gonna, cause there's those who gonna be planting on large scale and the outdoors, cause ain't everybody gonna, the mass is not going into the indoors. That's just what it is. So how are you gonna protect your soil if you're not thinking along this line, if you just want to be planting the same single crop over and over and over? You gotta think about protecting your soil and all this stuff. You just can't be thinking one way. And then, yes, and you see, let's throw cannabis into the ecclesiastic affairs or whatever it is. This is just like when in the 60s they were fighting for the civil rights movement, and then when they do getting the rights, they throw now the Gay Act and all this different stuff into it. Mine is your fight for you. So one thing, but we can't, so now they show your hand, they show you another one thing now. You see what I mean? You fight for your thing, but then they put you under with you see what I mean? You think are you thinking about your fight with your thing, but no, we got they put you. So at the same time with the civil rights, so it's all a game. It's not about Joe, you know.
But
The man going to, yes.
say one, say two. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
this comes down to this is why I keep saying we really need to be holding our officials accountable, because a lot
Yes.
of things and these things were done and decisions were made in relation to these things without any consultation with the people. And these are some of the challenges that we are faced with. I mean, even as you talk about bringing in, certain things and so on. Look at this is another issue, a side issue, but as you talk about that, we didn't get a chance to discuss anything about the adjustment of the Buggery law on St. Kitts and Nevis. But whatever it is, they just went in the house and just boom, just made the changes without any consultation with the people in relation to their thoughts and so on. The argument might be made that there was a consultation in relation to the cannabis issue, because there was some, town hall meetings and so on that went around. However, and this is one of the things that I kept arguing from the beginning when the government started to embrace the decriminalization talk, that it was not only medicinal cannabis that the CARICOM suggested or recommended that we should be moving forward. As a matter of fact, what CARICOM suggested was to regulate cannabis and regularize it as the same way you did alcohol and tobacco. So all of these long runarounds and wraparounds and so on that we are going with the cannabis, I really don't understand it. And as much as some people don't agree with the premier, if it's one thing I agree with the premier in his utterances, is that we should just free up the cannabis, move like Uruguay, the leader in Uruguay, free up the herb. I mean, he said it, and he is a top lawyer. And so this is why sometimes I say, these politicians, they're really very good when it comes to talking, and we see it in agriculture a lot, Earth Day, World Food Day, and all of these things. They have some nice fancy speeches, but then when it comes down to the action, it's a whole other story, because he is in the position where he could do a lot more in relation to cannabis, but he says it when it's convenient, that's the thought that he brings. But in terms of taking the actions, that might be another thing. And so, and we said this, Banky, and as I said that, I am open also to inviting the premier back to our platform, because he came on at one point and spoke to us in relation to cannabis. And so I'm sending an open invitation to the premier
I
to come
know,
back, and so we could have a follow-up
I know
discussion.
members of agriculture. I know the director himself. I'm not sure how much people went now from the department and ministry, but the director told me he was invited, which means people from the department, they get the memo. So I'm not sure if the PS went down or if the minister himself went down. I'm looking forward hearing the director, the PS, and the minister, and other members of the cabinet speak about cannabis. Kind of they won't come with the story. Oh, I have members of my family and friends who use it for years, and they are good citizens, and this and that. And I just listen for the whole charade. Cause honestly, I'm at the point I don't want to hear from these guys. You understand? You can't tell me. A matter of fact, before I continue, I need to say so. I don't know some personally about you listening the Junior Live about grounding this today, and I think it was very disrespectful to Sylvine Henry, and he should come and apologize back to Sylvie, because the lady, whatever her political views and opinion, he's a radio show host, part of a show, and people will criticize you or criticize the government or whatever it is. It's not to take personal. You cannot tell a lady don't get off the radio and you're fed up of them and you don't want to hear from them. And these are craziness, Virgin. You can't be so easily irritated and irritated and irritated and all these vibes where somebody contributing to a radio program that you're part of and all the other shows that the radio station hosts, not just where you're part of. Because the lady asked him, the Prime Minister is half island or whatever. Yes, he's half island. Day before he leave, he said anything. Yes, he did. He did say when I see it, I listened on the radio. Well, yes, and what the person said. But I mean, I remember I said, but he did say so. Well, fine, you can forget what he said, but at least. But I think I hear him say, well, I'm going to go to the US and wherever. You remember nothing Tali say because you remember nothing. That is like when a man asked the fan, well, were you in charge of over by the place over by Sandy Pen with all them, wherever the place with all them land where they had fencing with a Valley Garden? Yes, I was that. And what I didn't remember what the contract say. I didn't see him thing, you know. Your part, but I mean, come on, my brethren. So Sam, you need to really apologize to Sylvian Henry, and Junior should have let Sam apologize to and hold Junior and Dr. Martin a part of that show when Sam went on with that lady. That lady have only been good, whatever people you cannot hold. And that's thing about telling these parties. Sam, when I around the bush, I don't know these people. I never met Sam. I don't know them. I don't know Dr. I mean, I know them. I just listen to shows. I don't know Juni. I seen Juni for same. I know him. You understand and stuff like that. I probably spoke to him once and whatever. But I don't know these people. But your host the show and people listen and you don't know who listen to the show, so you can't be speaking on people like that. So that's triple X. Sam, just for that, because Douglas, don't tell the lady go back to your face. No, Sam come with this ignorance. I tell the lady get off the radio and whatever. My virgin, that's how you go. So right there, I lose my respect for Sam. Big time. He got to apologize to the lady. If he apologizes, then he can get back at least. He gonna still have to work for it. But right now, I had to put in that. And it's something, and I don't like it. You understand? And he need to. You can't speak down to the lady. They have done nothing.
Well, Banky, I mean, I don't. Let me say that I am not fully aware of that specific scenario. However,
go back and listen to the show. Go back and listen to Groundings and you're here. I want Arnold back and listen to Groundings before this. Yes.
Okay. So, however, though, what I would say, I find that a lot of our people who are in some of those positions, politicians, and people who are in some of those high civil service positions, sometimes are very thin-skinned. And I want to speak to the politicians per se, because, and one of the main reasons why I want to address them per se, is because they need to realize that they have opted to. Nobody hold any gun to their head. Nobody forced them. They opted to take on the position of a public figure. And with being a public figure, it comes with sometimes a lot of scrutiny. And with that, I am not saying that should give anybody the freedom to slander or defame the character of anybody or to get personal with any of these people. But I find that even when you don't do any of these things that I'm talking about, and you just seek to address issues that they are responsible for as public figures, as employees of you, that they get offended and want to talk down to you as you're talking about and disrespect you and belittle you. And this is something that we really need to address as a society. This can only be addressed, though, when our people become more conscious of the fact that these people are our employees and not the other way around. We are the employers. We are paying them. They're using our taxes to benefit in all of the different ways. And even in the things that they say they want to do for us and on behalf of us, they're using our taxes to do it and don't have the at least respect to come and consult with us. And so in relation to that question that you're talking about with Sylvine, I find, I mean, I didn't hear it, but as I'm saying, I find it is fear, because this is something that I have a problem with personally as well, that these leaders would leave and they go to these things. They're going to, in some cases, make decisions that impact us. And they've never had any consultations with us. I think if they're going to some of these meetings, especially when you know you're going to make certain decisions, come to the people first. Even if at the end of the day you make your own decision because you say, well, all right, you trust me, that's why you elect me to do the job. But at least give us the opportunity to have some say on the issue before you go, so that we could say, well, we had a say in this, and okay, this was what. Not that you go and make a decision and then later on, if whatever happened, then we have to pay the consequences. These are some of the issues that I have a challenge with.
Yes,
So
son.
I am in total
All
agreement with that.
all the shows Mr. Kanda been on, all he's talking about agriculture is our salvation. He been in there for nearly 20 years. He still was ambassador. If agriculture is our salvation, how you cannot even convince and you was a deputy prime minister and encourage to invest in agriculture. We cannot live without agriculture. These are all his recitation, isn't it? The serious about agriculture and the investment and is the future and is it this. Well, the future has exist, can we has exist. Future and time is the same thing. You see what I mean? So me I understand how these people that speak like a sub-virgin. I don't get it. And you see, and
Well,
these are people who
Banky,
want to be in the radio, and people look up to them, and then they respect the people in society, and they're playing the distinguish and all these things. And they just listen to these
Banky,
people on
when
the
something is
radio
going on,
and just like,
Banky,
yes,
when
uh-huh,
something is happening, right? When there's something happening,
yes,
and the emotions of the people are, you know, fancy and so on, and you could come and you could have a nice fancy speech and so on. Trust me, Banky. I mean, what would the people love more than that? Having something nice and hearing something comforting. And this is what I find with a lot of our elected officials. They are very good in terms of speaking. And when it's convenient, they would have a nice fancy speech. We had Earth Day the other day, and I'm sure you'll maybe hear some nice fancy speeches and so about agriculture and food security. But like I keep telling you, Banky, when it comes to food security, these people have a different mindset when it comes to food security. If they have money, which most of them
mm-hmm,
have because they're guaranteed a certain salary, and
yes,
the boats can bring in the containers to fill the supermarkets, there's no food security issue because they are secured, right? We who may not necessarily have that kind of money and would be looking for our local farmers to produce whatever it is. We have a whole different view. So we're thinking about securing ourselves, our sovereignty, being in control of our food. See, we have a problem where we are importing food all from over nearly $200 million worth of food, but we are in some cases talking about food security. But one of the biggest issue right now is to say we're going to have a food storage, we're going to import food. So we're not going to import from America, but we're going to import from Africa. Anyway, we do have our guest in, and so we are going to shift back and get back into our cannabis gear as we do introduce Miss Jihan Williams Knight to the platform. She's the chair of the Cannabis Medical Cannabis Authority, and I am really grateful for her time this evening because she had a hectic day today, and she could have said, man, I'm going to take a rest tonight, but she still opted to be
definitely.
here with us. So, Jihan, I definitely want to, thank you for, accepting the opportunity to be here with us. And I am sure, like myself and Banky, the listening public would be looking forward to hear about that huge event today and some of the things that we all can look forward to in St. Kitts and Nevis in regards to cannabis and moving forward with cannabis. So, welcome. Good evening. I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself and to give your opening remarks.
Well, I think you did a good job for the purpose of this conversation. I think that's good. I'm the chair of the board. Been in this position since July last year, so almost a year. But just generally, I guess maybe I should also say that I am part of the board because I the representative of the person selected by the attorney general. So to offer insight on the laws, and particularly as well because I'm involved in, well, I head the intellectual property office. So there's discussions there that I think could be useful to cannabis in terms of plant protection, if there are unique strains, branding of products, product development, that, developing the intellectual property and protecting the intellectual property that is surrounding cannabis as well. So
Okay.
that's
So hold one
essentially,
second. Hold 1 second. So I think also then, based on that, we should also add to make folks aware that you are also an attorney by profession. So I think that might be
yes,
helpful also. Okay.
yes, I
Um,
am.
Right. So that would make more sense when people understand why the Attorney General would want to allocate you specifically, so to speak, to deal with that aspect because you would have that sort of background and expertise as well. Okay. So that's great. So tell us about today. How
Well,
was
well,
today?
I will say, I think, just if you would allow me to say that the board is made up of two different types of people. So there are people who are nominated by ministers. So, for example, you have a representative for the Ministry of Finance, somebody from police, somebody from customs, health, like a host of other ministries. So we represent those persons, and then there are persons from the public with insight and knowledge and experience in cannabis who would bring insight to the board discussions and the policy development. So it's a wide range of persons. So that's how I got involved as the representative of the Attorney General. But today,
Okay.
you want to talk about today?
Yeah.
Today we had the launch of the authority. Well, strictly speaking, the opening of the office, alerting the public that there is now a space that people can come and get information. We also, handed out information to persons. We're working on the website and the social media presence, but it's just that the demand for the information was really, really strong. And we thought it was important that we start issuing information because the mandate from the minister is that we start issuing licenses by June of 2025. So now there's a space, and so we had the ceremony this morning. Speeches from myself, the Attorney General, the Minister. We had a speech from Ras Iroy as well, representing the Organization of Rastafari in Unity. And the Deputy Prime Minister was there representing the Prime Minister. So lots of comments, lots of energy, lots of questions. People seem to have been pleased by what was presented, and I'm sure if more will come out. I'm not sure exactly if you wanted me to mention anything specific, but just generally, it was a good day. I would say it was a good day.
All right. Sounds exciting. Um, in relation to um, PRO, I know you said that you were working on putting some more information out there. Would have been that debate and argument in the public sphere, and I am one who would have been pushing that as well. That I would have
Hmm.
thought that prior to now, that a lot more would have been done in relations to PRO, because I find that a lot of people, even though the laws would have been adjusted and things would have been passed in the House and so on, a lot of things were still left questionable. A lot of people are still questioning. So I think a lot more need to be done in that regard. So I'm happy to hear that
Yeah.
something like that is being done. Is there going to be someone from the committee specifically assigned to deal with that, or it's just going to be?
So no, we're going to have a dedicated. The authorities are going to have a dedicated public relations officer. Um, we you would note that I said I'm representing the board of directors, but the authority will have a CEO, public relations officer, and other supporting staff as well. So those we've had interviews for most of those positions. Um, and so we're looking forward to welcoming those persons into the authority and being able to consistently and effectively share information about what the plans and the vision and the procedures and policies are surrounding cannabis, medicinal cannabis.
Okay, I did hear you mention earlier something about um, the minister. Who is this
Mhm.
specific minister that is in charge of, so to speak, cannabis?
In 2023, it shifted from the Prime Minister's office to the Ministry of Agriculture. So it's now under the Ministry of Agriculture, Honorable Samuel Duggins.
Okay, so I need a little bit of clarity here.
Hmm.
So cannabis is under the Ministry of Agriculture, under the Ministry of um, Mr. Samuel Duggins. You at this point represent the medical side of cannabis. From
Hmm.
what I am understanding, the recreational and the religious or sacramental or spiritual side of it is vested in another ministry. Um,
Hmm.
so it, that aspect of it, when you have to deal with that, you would have to deal with that ministry. So that part is not under agriculture. So that's where I'm trying
No.
to get that.
So So it has been cannabis has been decriminalized in what I would call four areas. You could really call it three, but we'll call it four for easy reference. One
Mhm,
is religious. So based on the Sankofa Maccabee case, where the court found that it was unreasonable to restrict cannabis use for the Rastafari community, so the laws that prohibit them from using cannabis as a sacrament had to be struck out. So those laws were changed. And so we saw legislation like the Rastafari Rights Recognition Act in 2023, as well as the Freedom of Conscience Act in 2023. So religious, Rastafari rights falls under the Ministry of Ecclesiastical Affairs. So one, so we go religious. The second one is the private use. So adults coming out of the Sankofa case as well, adults have the right to use cannabis in their private home and to grow it in their private home and to carry up to 56 grams or 2 ounces of cannabis on their person without any legal consequence if they have what they're referring to a freedom of conscience card. So that also falls under the Ministry of Ecclesiastical Affairs. And then there is medical, so the medicinal side of it now. So that is where we fall in. So we're now concerning with using cannabis as medicine, where it is concerning medicinal use. So that falls under the Ministry of Agriculture. So it is a bit confusing, but the fourth area that you mentioned, recreational, is not
mhm.
legal. So recreational is still not legal. So it's really 3 areas, but there are four areas that we really associate cannabis use with. It is legal in 3, it is not legal in all 4. So recreational is still illegal.
So is there a rationale or explanation for that?
So the rationale that has been explained is in connection to the fact that we are signatory to a treaty called the International Narcotics Control. Um, yes, I think that's the that's not the full name, but there is an
Mm-hmm.
International Narcotics Control Board, and we are signatory to it, and it still classifies cannabis as a Schedule 1 controlled substance. We still have issues with banking regulations because some countries don't still have cannabis as an illegal substance. So if we bank with those countries and our corresponding banks, some of our corresponding banks for the institutions that we use here have banks in those countries, then they don't recognize transactions connected to cannabis being legal. So, because of the nuances from country to country, it has been very difficult to navigate a space where people can get into recreational activity and benefit from it financially because of all these banking regulations. But the good news is that
Mm-hmm.
central bank is working on our central bank is actually looking at cannabis and trying to see how we could develop bespoke cannabis industries for small island developing states. So we hope that in their research and in their advocacy as well, that we see changes in that regard. But for now, recreational is still illegal.
But how you doing, Miss Knight?
I'm
But
good.
ain't the medicinal part of it, medical, when you get the card and the religious, and can you see you have to get a card from the next ministry to
Hmm.
have the same herb as your supplement. But that's not the
Hmm.
same thing as recreational. Just different names we're using because it's the same herb, but it's just that what is controlled in a sense. You know, a company is
Yes,
recreational because
control.
all these people who get these cards, they're gonna still have they have to go to a doctor, pay the doctor where they forget the doctor now got them, or sick, and they don't just issue the card just like a candy. So it's just basically recreational under a name called Medicinal. Basically, that's just how
Hmm.
it is. So you just have a system set up in a way. Well, I'm just highfalutin talking out of my head. I know me I
No,
say. You
no,
understand? But
you're not.
me just see things different. Eh? Me just me not different how me see things and assess things. Eh? So me say how me brain assess it. Cause that's how me
No,
see it. You see, just
you're not. I
I'm
don't
not.
think it's no, it's not highfalutin at all.
All
That
right.
of
Okay.
course
So okay, good.
that
Yes,
has been
because okay.
Mhm.
Yes, okay, if I want somebody want to okay, I want to go in a store and get some up to age whatever. I am feeling good. I mean, I'm not eating whatever. Okay, you have well, you sure where you not eat good? Me, no, me not gonna appetite. And now give you a periop killer. That the name it open up your appetite when they go to the drugstore. That kind of periop killer your money is to go in and
But I
eat.
don't
Okay, then well,
yeah.
and give some OG cushion, man. This is gonna help you open up your appetite and eat some food. Boom. So when we get a cat, so me always you see what I'm talking about, right? So
Mhm.
anything it could be criticized how you look at because everything is really medicinal and how everything is distinguished. So I guess information is key, and I must give kudos by listening to the radio and hearing some of the laws and stipulations and just what you spoke about that is expected and the public should be aware of and stuff like that. So it's just a continue education and town hall with the general public and within the school sector and all this different stuff. Because for me, the age of anything that people don't understand, because the cerebral cortex, that frontal part of the brain that in develop between 23, 25, and where people make poor decision, just every poor decision people make, have not just using herb, anything like that, whether alcohol, promiscuous way, whatever. So if we know these things, as human, we brain and develop with these things, which means we should be adult at age 25 then. The age of 60 should go up and all these things should move up. We were making poor decision. Because if we understand these things, we know people gonna make poor decisions. So so my view tell me, well, this has to be a can. Because I mean, I understand it. Okay, if says they tell you a child, a human being and develop where he make poor decisions up until those 10, that's what they say you're more mature at those age. To the society, especially if environment. So I say in all this saying, the herb is not just all plants are medicinal, and to distinguish and labeling the plant or have it is, or it make people wonder, well, me I go to herb yeah, if you're having it in this environment is medicinal because it's in a controlled environment and it's supposed to be on the lights or whatever. I don't know all this situation. If it's in a greenhouse, I have to use these I must say, good agricultural practices and stuff like that, and be managed, because safety, you cannot compromise safety. That is my thing. Safety is something we cannot compromise. And we already have some bad agricultural practices going on within the food industry, within the department. Because the ministry itself, within both things, Navy sell the most toxic chemicals, you know what I mean, Roundup, glyphosate, all those stuff that farmers use. And growing cannabis is an agricultural plant, is a cash crop the same way. They will get the same pests, aphids, mites, you know what I mean, nematodes, name it. Where you get in tomatoes or on avocado tree or tomato tree or melon, you will get these same funguses. And plus, if you're indoors, it still become more complicated. You see, we can deal with humidity and air temperature and airflow and all this different stuff. So pests will get in. Ain't no vacuum where you can't avoid pests. So what type of pesticide will be used in this place? And then we still have to look at land degradation and all these different stuff, protecting the soil. Okay, if you're planting outside and protecting, I'm not sure what is the board responsibility when it comes to the pesticides and protecting the soil, and especially what land. Right now, the agriculture don't even have a land policy just for growing food. So is there going to be a land policy for cannabis? Can you see it's a lot? I look at things different to how most people look at things. You can look at things way down the road, 1,000 years from now. You will be still here. You know what I mean? And this, I will be still here, but in different farms. We ain't gonna go nowhere. So I understand from that point of view what protection is there when it comes to protecting our most important resource, the land and the human element. Because I, for one, who see the talent of growing food, we can grow our food and be sustainable, and I'm for one also know that we can produce the best and niche cannabis, because there ain't no place that I know and work around soil that have a better soil type and environment and stuff like when it comes to St. Kitts and Nevis or Liamiga. No comparison. So I know, plus in the environment to grow herb all year round, different to indoors in the temperate climate and cold places. So it's a place that people will be rushing to come. You see what I mean? So my thing is, even though we here we speak, we know the government gonna make their own policy and bring in whatever they choose to do. We can't stop them unless the people want it. Then ain't no reason to bring companies from the outside within St. Kitts Nevis, where we have the top growers that compete. It's just like we had the Penn Relays and the high school here won the race. We can't, because we're small, that we can't compete with in the US in, you know what I mean, in international scene with those relays. We then not come notice, not going to invest in our children when it comes to sport. You just don't know. Time have changed. It's just equal opportunities. So we got to invest in our human resource, and the board should be pushed that locals can be, this industry could be run by locals and locals only, and natives, and this will be native, not just residents are, like to say, citizens. Everybody have passports nowadays. I'm the one who like to use the word natives, because if you're not a native, then you can have a passport, but then it's totally different. If you're not a native, you shouldn't be involved in these things. And then if you're going to be growing cannabis, I should be growing a percentage of food too. Yes.
just one second. Somebody's knocking on my door.
Okay,
Just
no
give me
problem.
Yeah,
Take
30
your
go ahead.
time.
Yeah,
seconds.
Of
Be right back.
Take your
yes,
time.
yes.
Yes.
Take your
Okay.
time. Take
I'll
your
turn
time.
my
Yes,
camera
yes.
off. Yes. Okay.
Of course, no problem. Yes, yes. I'm for one. As how I say, I mean, at the point where we have very skillful people, and we got to make sure we protect our environment and our people. The natives should always at the helm. Once they can produce the work and do the work, they should be at the helm and give the resources should be put in with to them where they can develop the resource and stuff like that, and they do the one they are the one who benefit because you hear me come here and speak all the time and say, yes, and when people come in the country and I pick up paper and put up signs to keep navies clean and all this stuff. You all hear me say all the time, you know? And I laugh all the time. I know I say everything I manifest for the are you. Do not trust them, brethren. They're up to no good. They just want to take. I can't wait. People come from and not clean the place. So how you come to my place and I put up signs and say, keep navies and sing it clean, and then you want to make that. You don't love the island more than me, cause I am in all the time, so nobody could come and love it more than me. So when people say they love sing and this and so that, no. You want something from St. Kitts and Nevis. You want with beach, you want with fresh air, you want with lush, and that's the reality. So that is just my point of view on that. And my thing is strictly legalization, free up the herb because you still got to plant it, you know, and safety. Because banana is free, and yet also remember, I'm still curious, find it strange, even though there's a narcotic board and treaties are signed, they still went to the parliament and said it's a non-toxic plant, non-poisonous plant. So I find that, well, it's non-poisonous, well, why would it still be and such? You understand? Where you read about what the international agencies said when, I mean, brilliant brains here in thinking we said it's non-toxic. So why would it still be and at such a still be dangerous? That don't make no sense. That's a conflict right there. You see what I mean? It's non-toxic. It's not dangerous. No, it's used for medicine. It's healing people, but it's still a dangerous drug. So which is it?
Well,
Well,
you said a lot. You said
Yes, sorry. Yes.
but there are some things that I just want to respond to. So there
Yes.
is a list of chemicals that are
Mm-hmm.
prohibited in the use. Those are
Okay.
listed in the regulations. It's about 2 pages long of chemicals
Okay.
that would not be allowed. That's not my background, so I can't tell you
Of
which
course.
one is
I'll
which.
go through it. I'll go through it. Yes, I'll go through
Yes.
it.
And in terms of, I think one of the things we have to do is navigate where the world is,
Yes.
to ensure that people get the access that they want. So I try not to get too caught up in, the argument about, why are we calling it medicinal when it's really recreational and whatever you name you call it. To me, the issue is
Yes.
access. So we need to make sure people can access it and access it
Yes.
safely. So I agree with you. It's in terms of, we're calling it one thing, but perhaps it might be something else. But we're just trying to navigate where we are in the world, and not doing anything that could jeopardize the health of our people.
Okay, but
so
Well,
evident. I mean, okay.
specific.
Can I say? Uh, I mean, St. Kitts and Nevis and other part of the Caribbean is known for the use of cannabis. I mean, it is known that we use cannabis, but not just those who have locks on the head, because the use of cannabis is used for more than those who have locks on the head, because you can't tell who used the
Mhm,
herb. Just like you can't
mhm.
tell, I like to judge the reference, you can't tell who is gay. 'Cause I can be gay and nobody know me gay. You see what I mean? So it's the same thing with the herb. Teachers, police, lawyers, doctors, normal. And each family know people who use it and are responsible and stuff like that. Unless from since, I mean, I'm 48 years old, I mean, there are people who I know way older than me in the 80s. Is there is any statistic where the cannabis within Sinkers Nevis shows that people coming on a regular basis have caused X amount of death and X amount of injuries. Cause the same herb them go use that is medicinal now. Skype the evidence it was never there. It shows we way behind. We fight we really at least 40 years behind. We've been really holding back the development of our country. You see what I mean? But I mean, we have gone a long way. I mean, I know at the end of the day, as this time will come, and and I'm happy to be around to see these times is happening. Where I can make my contribution towards it. It's a beautiful time to see the changes, and my children is around to see these things because they're wiser than us anyway. So we really got to be doing the best thing forward if we're going to be raising a generation of children which is wiser than us and looking at us to see the things that we are doing. These are not times where we think we can be really bad. No, I'm going to school, doing SBS, going to the library and looking at fighting for one biology book and don't have access to a computer and them old typewriters. The era is different now. You see, so our children are way, way, way advanced than us, and we really got to do things the right way. Whether it's medicinal cannabis, it's alcohol. We just got to do it. Kind of watching us, and they understand. Kind of do their own research the same way, and probably know way more about us. You see, so it's not we can't just do what we want. We can just internationally, but our environment itself. Because people also use the herb. I don't think you have more children using herb now. It's they're not hiding. I can say because going to school, yes, I'm going to school because they're using herb all the time. It's just choices because I understand as a youth and stuff like that. You see what I mean? But now everything is more open, and I think the responsibility comes to parenting and the household and environment where these things need to be put in place, and education and stuff like that. Where you don't want to have a lot of young people just using the herb and not saying and they use. Can you see what I've realized in our society? You go to Boston, you go to Charleston, and any given time, especially on the Fridays, you see young men drink a lot of Guinness and different alcohol on the side of the road, and those things are never even condemned as a big thing. You see what I mean? And these are things we should really looking at to also cause not just cannabis, but all these going to contribute to the development of our society mentally. So everything should coexist.
I agree. I agree. I think you're definitely making solid points, and we have to think about how the welfare, especially of young people, are protected.
Yes.
I was actually reading a study recently about the impact of even heavy use of cannabis before the age of 36. I mean, I know you
Okay.
mentioned 5 that this study
Yes.
was saying that they're finding it's having an impact on people late on their memories later
Okay.
later in age when there is heavy abuse at a very young age. So it's something that we have to look at and manage and make sure that, yeah, people are safe. I'm
But
looking at,
Good.
yes, go ahead.
okay, I was gonna say, right, that I am listening to a lot of these debates and these discussions where cannabis is concerned, right? And I look back to 2018, I think, when CARICOM completed their regional research on cannabis. They did a 4-year research on cannabis within the region. And upon conclusion, they concluded that we should treat cannabis the same way we treat alcohol and tobacco. So if that was the recommendation by CARICOM, and we know how we treat alcohol and tobacco in St. Kitts and Nevis, why are we still having a lot of these um, pushback, so to speak, that we are seeing? Now, before you answer that a little bit, right? I'm just going to take a minute to go through some of the comments that are on the page. And I think the last comment might be something that you you might want to address anyway too. Let's go through the comments. So we have Seaview Farming saying good night. I would like to know how you all feel about the cannabis rollout from today. Okay, so that was earlier on in the conversation. Lincoln Pestano says the plant is unstoppable. Artificial and natural is the difference. Even Jeff was saying good morning, cousin Yasan Tafari, Banky, and listeners and viewers. Laurie Wharton saying good evening to all. Lincoln Pestano says no culture without agriculture. He says there is God's law, and then there's man's law. Sylvia Farming says, when I saw the leaflet they were giving out today, I just laughed because it's plain to see there's no space for the ordinary citizens of this country in that cannabis business. And he also went on to say 90% of the people on that board do not know anything about cannabis. They're all there for monetary gains. Now, and these are just general feedback, and sometimes you do hear this rhetoric from the public, and sometimes one can say justifiably so, because as we see, there's this push forward for medicinal, and I'm hearing here now that recreational is not even on the radar of things, so
No,
to speak, because at this
I didn't
point,
say that.
no, no,
I
no,
didn't say
no,
it's
no, no,
not
no,
on
you
the
didn't
radar.
say that. Here, what you say is not on the radar, so to speak. You said that you have 3 areas that are at this point legal, but recreational is not legal. And so that's what I meant in the sense of it's not even on the radar because it's not even legal yet. So there's still work to
Okay,
be done to even get it to that point. Yes. Banky, you were going to say
let me
something?
get this clear. Yes. Okay. Just say I'm a regular citizen because a lot of people have a concern where police is still going around. They're taking up their trees. But they're not charging them. If they just go along with the trees and stuff like that. You see what I mean? And some might get locked up and charge a fine or what stuff like that. Can know they're not going to charge, but you understand the laws that is put in place as a chair and as a lawyer that is there. If I want to go to Hub, is the procedure? What are the procedures? Because yes.
So right now, the law says that you have to get, as a Rastafari, you would have to register as somebody in the community, the Rastafari community,
No, no,
and
I'm
then
just
you,
not mean general. I just mean in general as a citizen, a native, anyone, whether you, anyone, not just me. I mean in general,
right,
just anyone.
you
Yes,
get the license. So the law is
if you get a
still required
license,
to get a
a
license.
license.
Then you would be able to legally plant the,
Mm-hmm.
it says up to five trees on your private
Mm-hmm.
property. So
Yes.
I think what has been happening is that maybe some people have more than five,
Mm-hmm.
or because the licenses I don't think have been issued as yet.
Issuing.
So I
Yes.
think
Yes.
the police have been taking a bit of a relaxed stance on
Mm-hmm.
that, where it is within five. But I don't
Yes.
want to speak for the police, but only what I've heard,
Of course.
um, what
Yes.
other people have complained about as well. People
Mm-hmm.
still feel like they're being unnecessarily, targeted
Yes.
or tormented, but that's what the law says at the time.
Of
But
course.
I
Yes.
really want a chance to respond to one of the comments there about what the person saw in the leaflet.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
What we try to do is make the information accessible, because the regulations are very, very long. So we try to condense the information, and so that people could see exactly what the requirements would be. I know some persons have complained about the cost being very high, and I want to say
The cost
that
for what?
we are
The cost for what?
cost of the
The cost for what?
licenses, the
Which
medicinal
one in
license.
particular? Or just for growing
Well,
and
the person said the leaflet, so I don't know exactly which
I
one.
got you. Yes.
So,
I haven't seen it
right.
either.
So
Okay.
Right.
Yes.
But just generally, because there are different types of licenses, so there were different leaflets printed for each type
Okay.
of license that
I
would be
understand.
available.
Yes.
And but I know that the cost of it has already been flagged as one of the areas where people feel very uncomfortable, feeling like it's not accessible to locals. But these are regulations and prices that we met. So when we assume duty on the board, those prices were put in place since 2022. So what we're trying to do now and what we're encouraging people to do is where you spot those, what we call like a pain point, somewhere, something in the whole process that you're not comfortable with, you feel like it excludes you, then I would really like for those things to be brought to our attention so that we can address it. But as it is
Yes.
now, this is what we met, and this is
Yes.
what we have to go forward with. It doesn't make sense that we change it now at this point, and then when we start receiving applications, you hear, oh, but you need to change this too, you need to change that too, you need to change this too. So let's start the process, see where the pain points are, adjust where necessary, and so that people can feel included in the process, especially people from St. Kitts and Nevis.
So, okay, you mentioned that in relation to a person, and we are now being general. So I know you were going to get into specifically for Rastafari, but just being general, you were saying you would need that person who's going to plant 5 trees in their yard would need to get
Mhm.
a license. Are
Yeah,
you at this point able to tell us how much that license costs? And
I believe
also,
it's a law. Let me check quickly.
yeah, while you're
Um,
doing that, the cost, and also if it is already available for persons to have at this point.
so we're talking about in terms of the 5 trees. I'm reading directly from the Freedom of Conscience Act. The fee
Hmm.
payable for an application fee for a license shall be $100.
Okay, and is that already in
And
place? Can an individual go right now and purchase and get that license as we speak?
It's not in place as yet. So that's why I was
if it's
saying
just
that the
open,
police seem to have been taking somewhat of a relaxed stance. If you've been within the parameters, they've allowed things to happen. But for example, you might still see in the media that people are getting arrested for importation or possession. So those would be cases where it has perhaps gone over the limit of what you would be allowed to walk with on your person. Importation has always required some kind of permission as well. So that's why we're still seeing people being arrested, while some other things they're letting certain
So
things slide.
how was there any thoughts or um, suggestions from maybe any member of the board or anything for a moratorium on that in the meantime? Because see, why I'm asking this is because here is it that technically it is supposed to be legal, but it is not the fault of the population, but it's the fault of the government not putting what they should put in place as yet. So
I I
why not?
wouldn't I wouldn't say that, because like I said, if somebody has gotten, I don't know, I am not aware if somebody has had, let's say, 4 trees growing in their yard, and the police try to arrest them or give them a ticket. What I've been seeing and hearing is that when it's less than 5, so the law says less than 5, you would be fine. But I guess when the licenses for that particular situation comes into play, then we might start to see a different scenario. One of what I could tell you that I know, for example, the Rastafari community are not happy about that, about having to get licenses for religious sacrament and things of that nature. So I know that there's advocacy on that front. But remember, when it comes to fees for personal and religious, that is not the authority. So I can't speak for them.
Oh, so
Also,
that's
the other section,
another
the other
ministry.
ministry might have their own fees too, you mean? Have their own fees?
Which section?
The other Ministry
Recreational
of
side, the religious,
Ecclesiastics,
the
the
ecclesiastic.
That's the
religious spiritual
$100.
area.
That's the
Okay, in that
$100.
area.
Yes.
Okay.
And
But
I should mention as well that there was legislation that says that registered Rastafari groups would not have to pay any fees. And that's on the religious and the medicinal front. So no fees
Okay,
for them.
so the license will be waived.
Yes.
Okay.
for
But
Rastafari,
that have
but
to do,
they have
but
to
they have to do
they have
trade,
to
but they have
be
to
a
do
part
trade. They
of.
can trade. The license have to do the license is what for grow and trade and sell. That so I'm trying to understand is different license.
Yes, it's different. So you have
So all the licenses are waived.
cultivation. Yes.
All the licenses are waived for selling, trading, whatever is waived.
Yes.
For
For the
Rastafari,
Rastafari.
Okay.
Yeah.
but
Yes.
they must be a part of a Rastafari religious organization based on what you're saying here.
So if
Yes.
I'm not a part of a group, what happened to me if I'm not a part of a group? Because I'm a Christian, I'm not a part of a Christian group or assigned to any church. If any or any other faith, so if I'm not a part of the line with a group, what does that say?
Well,
Most
I
people
don't know
is not a
I
part
don't
of
know
any
what the
group.
assessment I don't know what the assessment is in terms of determining who is a Rasta, but I'm just explaining to you
Yes,
what the law
of
says.
course. Yes.
But you understand it would be important then, because then everybody is gonna come and say that they are Rasta.
Well, yeah, me could come to me a Christian too. Let me come and me could say me a Christian. And the same thing, you
Yeah.
can't
So
differentiate who is a Rasta, who is a Christian.
from time you
You
hear,
see?
from time you hear that, fees waive for Rasta, you might decide you are
Yes.
Rasta. I have locks, but
Of course. Of
I don't
course. Yes.
identify as a
Yes.
Rasta. So,
Of
but
course.
that a fair assessment, or just to say somebody who have locks, and like you said, so we wouldn't know, so we would trust the Rastafari community to tell us
To to gi-
or to tell
to give a
them.
letter and to vote as well. This person, yes, is what they would have to verify. That's what you're saying.
Hmm.
Yeah, but again, but how can they verify it when they're not a part of a group?
But
Because remember,
I
if you have, I'm just saying that because even if
No,
you
it's
say
these
quite
are
in
interesting.
St. Kitts,
these are
yeah,
the
because if
these
St. Kitts
are the
Navies have three as the organization, and the three organization can come to have say 100 both. I mean, registered what must say
members.
members, and within and the island you have say those who look like a part of the same faith or whatever it is, about 4,000. Well, how that gonna work? You see what I mean? They have to go forced to be registered to be a part of these, ask for letters and different stuff. Cause that's gonna happen.
But
I
the
foresee
thing is,
happening.
so then how do you carve out space
Yes.
specifically for Rastafari to protect them? What would be the recommendation then
Me
to
tell you who may
protect
be.
that? Huh?
Well, me tell you who may be. Me tell you who may be. That's it. It's just like you float a farm. You have a male, female or X. Well, me say X, other, me say other. It's choices. You can't. That's just how
Mhm.
simple as it gets. You just gotta trust me. Trust me to tell people they tell them to
Well,
be.
you
If I tell
see,
you I'm a female, I'm a female. I guess that's how it is. Yes, Jason.
Banky, I do understand
Yes,
the predicament that Miss Knight and those who are there would be
of course.
faced with when it comes to these things for a
Yes,
number of reasons. Like, okay, for one, she just said that she is not necessarily Rastafari. So then it,
yes.
she might not necessarily be as knowledgeable as to like all of the, as she said, the nuances that happens within the faith and movement, and to understand that okay, yes, it's not all who subscribe to Rastafari might necessarily be a part of a Rastafari organization, and how that in itself um, would discriminate or leave a large sector of even the Rastafari community out. Because at present, as you mentioned just a while ago, if you were to put the Rastafari organizations and St. Kitts and Nevis together, you might get less than maybe 200 or 300 documented members, if so much. But then when you really look at the population of Rastafari between St. Kitts and Nevis, really, there might be 2,000 or 3,000, but they are not necessarily any member of any group or organization. So then, technically,
So,
then this would force Rastafari then to become a member of some sort of organization in order to benefit from this,
and
which
is that a bad idea? Is
Look like a
promoting
look like they're collecting data to me.
collecting
That
data?
told me that told me yeah, that told me being function.
But what are we
Look
gonna do
like
with the data?
statistics.
What can we do with the data?
Anything. People sell data every day. Data is collected every day in different
no,
ways
but
and sell
Bangi,
every day,
what
of course.
you're seeing that, but also
Yes.
what I'm seeing is
Uh-huh.
something that a lot of people are also seeing and saying, and we spoke about that earlier because I think somebody mentioned that a lot of the people who are now standing to benefit from the cannabis
Yes.
decriminalization were the people who fought it. And even with what we are seeing here now, when you listen to what is happening here, you're seeing more of the government seeing an opportunity to generate revenue off of the
Mhm.
industry. Because if you're telling me that you had a case and the case determined that this is what the country should do, that was what the Sankofa case said. I mean, we need to do this. Now, you are saying from the government side that yes, we are going to do this, but we are going to zoom in on the medicinal side, which is the regulated side, which is the side that we are standing to benefit from. Yet, the side that was really pushed in the case, so to speak, as you mentioned with the Sankofa, would have been more the spiritual and, if you want to say, recreational, which was personal use in his personal space. But we
No,
are
that's
now,
private, not recreational.
Yes.
Private
well,
use.
not
Privacy.
recreational, not
Yeah, private
recreational,
use.
but privacy to some extent, because even if you're not religious, but you're in your private space, you're still
Mhm.
allowed to. So, but those were the premise of the case, so to speak. It wasn't so much on medicinal side. The government has opted to use that slant to decriminalize with, to me, the agenda of really making as much money as they can off of the industry because they see it as an opportunity to generate revenue from. Now, for me, I don't necessarily so much have a problem with that, except to say that with how that is being structured, seemingly Rastafari community, even though they have been included, so to speak, in terms of being allowed to use, in terms of the trade and benefiting from that business to some extent, they have been excluded unless they're going to come as a co-op or a group or something like that. So these are some of the things that I guess I am looking at, but I know you're just focused on the medicinal side. But these are the things that comes with the medicinal side. All of these regulations, all of these licenses, all of these taxes, which are basically revenue generator for the government. Now, the people who would have suffered over the years for seeking to use something which they know all along is good and usable, and even to this point here, I made this point earlier on before you came on, that it is even actually very hypocritical when we are looking at addressing cannabis from the medicinal standpoint, because one of the reasons why when you mentioned we're having this issue with the financial companies and banks and so on in terms of the money is because of the fact that cannabis is still on the federal books as a Schedule 1 drug, which by definition states that cannabis has no accepted medicinal use or purpose. That is what the definition of a Schedule 1 drug states. The hypocrisy is now we are now seeking to decriminalize based on the premise that it has medicinal use and purpose, and even pushing medicinal before recreational and or spiritual, which were the main areas that folks know that they were used and were pushing for. So I'm sure you understand why there would be this kind of pushback and why there would be this kind of mindset, especially if, as we're saying, it's still on the books saying that it has no medicinal use or purpose. So how do you respond to that critic and that sort of argument?
Well, I again, it's sort of like the issue Banky raised earlier. Are we concerned? Are we concerned with growth, incremental growth, or can we look at the benefits of incremental growth, or should we shut down everything because we don't get everything we want? Where changes are being made incrementally. So it started with the Sankofa case with the um, freedom of conscience and right to privacy. And the change was made in that area. But then, and as a matter of fact, medicinal came first because medicinal was in 2020. The Sankofa decision was in 2019, but the changes really started. The changes for medicinal, I think, were much more significant, and then there were changes to accommodate what the court said in the Sankofa case. So you're correct in terms of medicinal being perhaps the bigger focus because of the income generation opportunity that it raises, not just for the government though. It's not just for the government.
The question
So
is,
I think that that is a significant part that is missing from the critic. If you want to say it's hypocritical and you want to say that, you know, all of this is just for government to make money, well, how is it going to make money if people, it's not going to
don't
make money
plant.
if people don't use the system, if people don't farm, if people don't sell what they farm, if people don't sell the products that they make. And so there are opportunities for people too. And I think that that is what um, should really be what we're focusing on. So when somebody says, for example, earlier, one of the comments about they don't see an opportunity for locals to really benefit, I am very interested in that conversation because then
Yes.
what can we do to make sure that locals benefit? Not just criticize and say, or the same for us. So tell us, and I'm telling you, we're open, we're listening. We have the benefit of being a new board to say, what we weren't here when these laws were made. We weren't here when these prices were set. So if now it comes to the time for us to actually start implementation and people are saying we can't afford it, then that's what we need to address to make sure that our people, not just the government, could start generating income.
Okay, question, right? What, as a chair of the new board, what is the agenda where you'd like to see the industry move forward, and what are some of the obstacles you all foresee, uh, ideas you all have came up with and stuff like that. Also,
Mhm.
I think I was about to say something else, but that was one of the main thing, though. I mean, as the chair, where you want to lead this to, and also, yes, I know the Ministry of Tourism themselves also had that interest where they wanted to get involved into growing cannabis and use the eco park as a part of an environment. I'm not sure. Well, let me say allege. Let me say, I go get myself in a problem. Allegedly, use the eco park. You understand? As a it's a nice place of where tourists could become and set up as a lounge and different stuff and be a part with tourism attraction and stuff like that. And they also
Mhm.
would have taken some of the products as a gateway to take off of those locals who have the business would buy their products as a way for them to sell their products. Um, I know. I guess the Minister of Tourism would have to speak, and that part you can't speak for themselves. But I just wanted to
Yes.
know where you as the chair, where you're planning leading the way forward for the authority.
The big thing for this board is inclusion, making
Okay.
sure that people, ordinary people, can access it,
Yes.
and their position to stick to the regulations, not use the chemicals that we that have been identified as potentially harmful. Go through the process fairly, honestly, and get make some money off of this. If it doesn't feel accessible, which is why, you know as you said, Yasan, the criticisms don't bother me. If people want to criticize, there's usually something in there that, as a board, I think we should be paying attention to. And for example, you started out early in the show about public education and making sure that people understand. So if you come
Right.
and you tell me you don't understand, why would I get upset that you tell me you don't understand? If you tell me you don't understand, it means that I have to work harder to make sure that the information is clearer to you. And that is the kind of attitude that we have. We're listening, we're trying to make it accessible for people. And I think the government has taken that stance as well, again trying to even make space for Rastafari, because not every country has done anything. Some countries have done nothing,
Yes,
and
yes, I totally
Rastafari
agree.
organizations have had to pay the same as everybody else. But so we're trying to see how can we create these spaces for our people. We don't want the foreign companies to be the ones to, take the lion's share of everything. We don't want that. So it has to be, we have to strike the balance. We have to see how we could incorporate people, but we really also want to stress. And one of the things that has come out, you actually mentioned it from our discussions with, the Rastafari being outside of organizations. Why are we
Right.
afraid to partner up? Why are we so afraid? Why are we going to constantly just say, I don't trust people, I going at it myself? how far are you going to get
I, I
by
don't, I
yourself?
don't, I don't quite think it is that case. Um, it's just like you said, like we said. I guess that's Rastafari, but using um,
Okay.
even within other religious groups, as Christians, you may be a Christian, but you might not necessarily go to any church, but you practice Christianity. And I mean, when churches might be having activities, you might go to church activities as well. So like when
Mhm.
Rastafari would have meetings and so on, there are Rastafaris who might not necessarily be members of any organization, but would attend and would be a part of and participate. But I was just really being practical. That's the practical reality of our
I
situation.
understand.
That at
I
present,
understand.
um,
So, but
but
let me if I could give you just like an example. We understand everybody might not you might not capture anybody, but if there is an avenue for you to be counted by simply joining one of them, is that really the impediment? Is that really such a big barrier that you're going to let come between you and possibly accessing it? Somebody is saying it's not affordable and it's free for some people. And all you would have to do is join an organization.
okay,
But we don't
no,
want to join none. So what if
Huh?
me
that's the
once?
thing. But
Well, I mean
okay,
that is just. I guess that is choices. If I don't want to join any, then I'm just not going to be a part of it. I get that
Yeah.
what is afforded to me. I guess. But as you said, these things could
Mhm.
be amended or changed too to accommodate others. You see what I mean? Because no, hypothetically, I'm not a part of anything. No, I'm being forced to go and be a part of a church and say, well, I'm an Anglican, I'm a Methodist, and I'm not a bobo. But God just say me a bobo, I'm not a bobo. I'm a naya bingi, I'm not naya bingi. You see, so big right there.
well, you
Just
see
to
So,
get,
that
so, so what about starting
yes.
your own organization then?
no
I mean,
that
I
brings us
got.
into a whole other discussion, right?
Yes,
And I know
of
that
course.
we can go on and on with this topic, but we have
Yes,
exceeded a little bit of your time. But just
of
before
course.
we close up this session this evening, Miss Knight, um, you know, as you said, some people say it's not affordable, but I guess you guys still have to or had to um, balance out, I guess, what the licensing fees are generally out there, because I guess you all would have had to do some research and so on in order to come to. Well, you said you met the figures there, but I guess
I would
all of that would be
imagine
a part of.
yeah,
Right.
I would imagine so.
Um, So the one question would be, like Banky mentioned earlier on when he was alluding to um, natives, if so to speak, something can't be, or if they're going to consider it as being preferential, if you try to carve out a pricing specifically for your natives versus um, where there's other international companies or other people coming in, that's one way
It's
of looking
there.
at it.
That's how it is. That's how it
Okay.
Okay.
is. There is
Then
a citizen price and a foreigner price,
okay.
which
So
is
which
Now
first? I got you.
sorry.
Yes.
Yeah,
I was
and
gonna
of
ask
course
No, or
now.
just
the foreigner prices are much higher.
It's a much higher. I guess I would have to get a chance to look at it. But one of the reasons why I am concerned with that is because, okay, for example, as you mentioned, right, that the banking issue is a major problem. Now, it's also a major problem for many of the large companies that are already in existence in some of those spaces that are already legal, like Canada, for example, because I worked in Canada. I was part of the first batch that the government sent off to um, work in the cannabis field in Canada, right? Um,
Mhm.
Now, when you have companies like those who are making millions of dollars and have millions on hand cash too, because in some cases they can't bank properly, right? These are people now who would have the money sitting down, so to speak, and ready to invest. Now, with and this is why I guess I'm looking at it from this perspective, with the regulations that's going to be necessary for the medical side of cannabis, the strict regulations, because from what I experience in Canada, the regulations for cannabis in terms of medicinal cannabis is so stringent, it is even seemingly more stringent than even for food handlers. The way they deal with cannabis in terms of checking the quality and all of these things, sometimes they don't do it for food handlers in terms of So these companies now have the money to, let's say, come in, put in all the infrastructure that would be necessary to meet those specifications, and also even on their first one or two crops, even if they don't meet the necessary requirement, because they have that sort of capital backing, they could take that beating. So, like, if let's say their first crop doesn't meet the required, whatever, that's a
Standard.
loss, right? Okay. Now, we in these parts might not necessarily have the funding to be able to deal with that sort of backlash. So, would it really be fair play, so to speak, for our people in the medicinal side of the industry? Um, when you look at it from that perspective,
I don't think any market is fair play. Just the same way you could have somebody mixing drinks, making local drinks and selling out of their car. There is somebody who could come and set up a business and sell slushies and all kind of fancy drinks, and people will choose what is according to their preference. There are also people who would choose to stick local, feeling more of a connection to the product rather than something foreign. And again, it's just about finding ways to ensure that people have opportunities, equitable opportunities, where yes, maybe in some cases we might have to consider special conditions. We I think the legislation speaks strongly against monopolization. So if we notice that there is a player in the industry who is monopolizing the industry, then we'll have to take action against that. But we really, I think, have to encourage our people to step the game up and make sure that they meet the standards that people, consumers, are requiring. Sometimes you might be selling cookies and you just wrap it in a saran wrap or foil paper, while somebody else has this pretty box. These are things that you have to consider when you're coming into the market. This is no different than any other type of business. You find your market, find your niche, and where you think you can be supported, then you make those kind of requests.
Okay,
the
my
challenge.
question is yes, son. When I know the office opened up today, the office of the license authority, when it will really be functioning. So, and it will open Mondays to Fridays, off on the weekends, and I can call Monday and say, what information I have some seeds coming in. Where can I get my seeds coming in, and what companies are you can get the seeds from, which is put in place, which is safe. The seeds are safe to order from. How soon can people start to get put things in place? Because you said I want to issue license in June. So it means that if they want to issue license, it means people have to start prepare themselves. They will go on seeds and bring in material. And when it comes to that, what I want to say, like setting up the business, when it comes to concession, will be given. Are there concessions that will be given to them to people get involved. When it comes to small businesses, same if things, well, I'm not sure you're going to be able to answer these questions. I guess these are for the minister that will be available after the board going to try put these things in place, that the authority that and go back to the minister where they can access to start up their business the same way, just like any other business and stuff like that. Would they have it for people under 35 or above 35, or for anyone who access the same? Because this is going to be an industry that need heavy capital investment and stuff like that. So you're going to have funding put in place. These are just basic thing. And I guess, Ali, you can answer the question one night. Hopefully you'll have me back in the future. But that is just basically I wanted to put in, you know.
Yeah, so you all got the first interview after the launch.
And we are grateful. We are grateful. Okay, because I mean,
I
we are
mean,
very grateful.
I'm just being, funny, but
Of course.
there are staff there,
Yes.
and if you call or if you send emails, somebody
Yes.
will be able to answer your questions, or if they can't answer your questions immediately, they will get back
Yes.
to you. Because
Okay,
as I said,
beautiful.
it's very important for us to hear what people
Yes.
have to say and to see where the pain points are, and to see what we could do to address it.
And
I'm
also,
not sure. I'm seeing a comment on the screen about somebody is concerned that they have to join a religious group to use
yes.
cannabis. That's not. I don't think that person has interpreted
Yes, to
what
get
was
have
being
to get the
said
license.
correctly.
Yes.
Yes, for somebody to qualify for the fee waiver, the license fee waiver, that's in the context that we were talking about joining a religious group. So it's not for use. Use
Well,
is different.
Miss Williams
Yeah,
Knight.
yes, sir.
Um,
Yes.
I can see that you can see also based on the feedback that we're getting here from the conversations and all the comments and so on, that the folks enjoyed you being here. I am wondering now if you would be open to a next opportunity eventually at some point. It doesn't have to be right in
Of course.
next. Okay,
Of
wonderful.
course. And again,
Because
Okay,
I think
I'm
there's a
open.
lot.
You saw that, you just sent me a message on Facebook and we just
Right,
started. So
yes,
I'm very
beautiful.
open to conversation and hearing people's views. Because if it doesn't work for our people, what's the what is the
well,
point?
you
So
know,
let's figure out a way and all the ways that we could get things
right.
done to make it work for people.
Okay,
And
what I wanted to say is that we are the only show that speak about cannabis for the last 5 years now. Every week we push it, every month we push cannabis. So the information I hear you all sharing over the radio about the legislation and all this stuff, I would appreciate if the government can get some of the ads to Real Entertainment Network also. I think it would only be fair that we help to share the information to this media also. We have a very good listening audience worldwide, and the information should be disseminated to as much media um, forum as possible. I think that
right.
is very important. I do hear it in some mainstream media and radio stations, so all should benefit. So I'm pushing for Real Entertainment. As you see, our media is here, and people do listen to us. So I'm just making a plea if these things are possible. I see
Of
the
course,
first ladies, they're
of
talking about
course.
something. Yes, and what the first lady they say. I see the first lady
Uh,
chiming in.
oh, she said, is the unit department? Or she's asking if the unit or department
Fully
fully
staffed.
staffed. If not, are available positions being advertised?
We
That's the
had
question.
some vacancies. We had some vacancies
Had it?
in October. They were advertised. People applied. We did
Hmm.
those interviews, and we should be onboarding those persons very
Okay.
soon. But there are people in the office
So I
temporarily,
know
at
there was
least.
says their
And
CEO
then,
already.
and then
They
yes, there's not a CEO yet. We had the
okay.
ad out, I think, in Yeah, in March, late March.
Okay.
So we have those interviews coming up soon. So
Okay.
all of the positions were advertised, people applied,
Yeah.
and so we're
Nice.
hoping to have everybody in place very
Okay.
soon.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Beautiful.
You
Okay.
know, as we are winding down, the last thing I want to put in, and I want you to think about it if you have not really before, because it is an issue that I think at this point is popping up in Jamaica, and I don't know. Um, well, I'm not certain exactly why it is happening, but I kind of have idea in my head, and I want to be able to put it out here for St. Kitts and Nevis so that we might not necessarily find ourselves in that situation. The situation where seemingly now they have allowed international companies in, like the company that I even work for, because I think they had a branch in Jamaica. But as a result now too, they are also quote unquote importing cannabis into Jamaica to sustain their market. Um, there might be a rationale behind it, and that's one of the things that I'm looking at. So, what I'm looking at is the same regulations that I'm talking about here that our people would have to face, that they would have to meet, even if it is just the raw flower that they're going to be selling to maybe these larger companies. It would have to be
Mhm.
grown under certain conditions, and it would have to meet certain regulations in order for them to even sell to these companies. So then when the government allows a company like that to come in and operate, and then the people
Okay.
who are supposed to be growing locally might not have the quality or the standard that their clients are accustomed to, then that company now is forced to bring in, because remember also, they are not just going to be looking at their local market. One of the reasons why they're in is because they're going to be looking at the tourists and the cruise ships, and people who might be coming from their destination would be accustomed to their brand and stuff like that. How do you foresee um, some of these challenges and would mitigate against our people being sidetracked as a result of these regulations that's going to be a part of the medical industry?
But you know the argument is very similar, or the circumstances are very similar to food importation, where it might be a situation of demand, it might be a situation of inconsistent local markets. It might be persons just have a preference for foreign produced goods, and that's why perhaps we have this very high import bills across the region. Uh, it's a parallel could probably be drawn between that and cannabis. We're 51,000 people. How many of those people are going to be using cannabis? We don't know yet. But we know that there are people who are would be coming into St. Kitts and Nevis and would be interested. So we would have to consider that as well. But again, not in a way that monopolizes the market. And again, it's not even to say it's a matter of quality, because we know what goes here is high quality. But the question is, what does the market want? So that's why I say in a lot of cases we have to step our game up, because people might look at the cookie in a foil paper and say and question the quality or the standard of it, whereas one in a pretty box with bright colors might have somebody's attention faster and longer. So we're really going to have to see how we could meet the demands and meet the preferences with what is produced here.
Okay,
So
thank
therefore,
you.
then
And
that's mean they have Yes, and before, as Miss Knight mentioned, when it comes to stepping up your produce and your marketing, which I assume the aesthetics and stuff like that, and labelings and all that, of standard, and it's like putting a paper bar, a brown paper bar, which mean the testing facilities mean that the government gonna have, we have to, and the authority will have to have an area, a lab that will have all the different machinery to test for pest and fungus and all the different the percentage and all this stuff. You have a place where things have to be tested.
Yes.
So
So
yes.
the ministry has a plant diagnostic lab, and
Okay. Okay.
they're also supported by the lab that the Bureau of Standards use.
Standards. Okay. Yes.
Right. But that is, and you can tell me how you feel about it, but that is actually one of the areas where private investor might really serve the industry well. Somebody to set up a testing facility that people could go to, and be able to have that in that facility help them out with the testing requirements. But it is actually that there is
Well,
a license for somebody to operate a testing facility.
yes. Well, we have to work
Okay.
closely with the authority and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted
Okay. Yes.
to get one more
Yes.
thing in and to find out
Sure.
if
We have to let
Miss
the lady
Knight
go in there,
would.
your son. Keep the
No,
lady in
no.
tonight, you know,
I
'cause you
just
can't say
this
one
is the
thing every
last
minute, you
thing.
know.
This is the last
You
thing. I just
can't keep
want to
saying
let you
last
be
thing,
able
you know.
to. I would just want to let you
Okay, go
be able to
ahead.
help us to get in contact with Mr. Jeffrey Hanley, or whoever, if he's the person that we would need to
At the
speak to in
office.
relation to the recreational side and the spiritual side, or whoever in that office that is responsible for
I'll
that.
I'll work on that for you. I'll work on that
Okay,
for you.
thank you. Thank you very much. And we want to
Yes.
thank you very much for your time and your overtime. And we're honored to be the one to get the first interview after the opening of the office. I think you would
Yeah.
have shared a lot of valuable information. There were a lot of comments too that we didn't get a chance to go through, but that's, I guess you get a chance to look at it after. And if there's anything that you want to respond to, you can. But I really grateful for the opportunity to have you. I think you would have
Yes.
helped to clear up a lot of things. And I must say you have been very open and very easy to communicate with. And we do look
Yes.
forward
Yes.
to another opportunity. Anytime you're available, just call to us. Like
Yes.
Banky said, this is the only show in St. Kitts and Nevis that hosts a show that is dedicated to cannabis. The last week in every month, we have been doing that for the past 5 years, dedicated to cannabis education. So we were leading the way. So let's see, if you guys can help us help you to
Sure.
spread the
Yes.
word. We can be one of those avenues. So thank you very
Sure.
much.
I appreciate the invitation and the understanding. I have somebody here looking at me like you said 9 o'clock, but so
Well, thank you
And
very
we are
much,
grateful.
and we
We are
apologize
grateful
to
for
that
your
person
husband
as
for
well.
his understanding and the family for his understanding for taking his family time. We apologize, sir.
So, so
no, but
we
I
thank you.
appreciate he understands. He understands. It's fine.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I think this is important. This kind of dialogue is important, and it's going to be pivotal for us to have more of these conversations. I'm not sure who Seaview Farming is, but if you need to have a
Yes.
conversation with me, I am open, because I know there were some concerns and comments raised, and
Of
we
course.
are very open.
Yes.
I'm not one of those people who will tell you, "Oh well, that's your opinion. That's your business." No. If you
Yes.
are
Well,
concerned, let's try and get it
Beautiful.
done. Even though I
and
know
Of
I saw the
course.
tell them where the office is located. Tell them where the office is
yes,
located. So now, I mean,
office
use
is
the opportunity to do that.
the office is located on Prince's Street in the heart of Bastille. The number is 4671613, and the email address is skncan authority, can with two N's, at gov.kn. I'll send you all this
Beautiful.
information.
Nice.
Because especially since you guys talk about it so much, we
Yes.
need you
Yes.
to be on board with what's happening. And we will also be having public awareness initiatives
Beautiful.
in Nevis as well.
Beautiful.
That
Beautiful. And
sounds
let me
good.
say
I
thank
did
you.
get to ask about
Thank
that,
you.
the Nevis side, because I find that seemingly
Yes.
doesn't seem like much is happening on Nevis. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, we have to. That's something that we have to work on. The minister is leading on that path, because there's that ministry connection that has to be made. But we have to work on that side.
And greatly appreciate you coming in again. And I expect this would have been a beautiful show, because I know as I said, I've been listening to your shows over the years when you were part of hosting those shows. So I know it would have been an easy and a fun conversation. So I'm not surprised. You understand? So I'm grateful and looking forward in the future and the continued we work together, as you understand, as we disseminate the information and educate the general public.
Yes, I appreciate it.
Right.
Seaview Farming
Yes.
can send me an email.
Yes.
Williams.Jihan, Jihan, @gmail.com. And we could
Appreciate-
connect. Because you have concerns and I want to hear what they
Yes.
are. So,
Beautiful. And I just say thanks for your husband for being such an understanding person and letting me be a part of the everything agriculture. I got to put it out there so I know it is. You understand? Because I'm downstairs, my wife is upstairs. I got to go upstairs too. So I know. I know it is. So I appreciate that. I mean, for being such a wonderful sport, I must put that out there. Definitely. So you have a good support system, which is beautiful.
Yes.
All right. Enjoy
Always.
the rest of your evening and the weekend and stuff like that.
Yes.
Yes, son?
See you guys again.
Thank you very much.
soon.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
Here.
People,
Okay.
Yes.
it was a very interesting edition of Everything Agriculture. We do look forward to having you next week, Friday, for another edition. And do tune in next week, Tuesday, for another edition of Deep Topics here on Real Entertainment Network. So, enough love, everybody. Guidance and protection.
Yes. Okay, Miss Knight. You can log off. Let me try to get Ira, your son. Guide, chat the mic.
Okay, yeah. So, people, it was a very interesting and exciting discussion as we experienced today.
Just play the music and that's how log off.
The start of the Cannabis Authority, the opening of the Cannabis Authority office on St. Kitts, and we were able to have an interview with the chair of the Cannabis Authority to give us some insight on what happened today and some of the things that's happening within the cannabis laws and regulations and where we are and some of the things to look forward to. And we are now going to be looking forward to get in touch with the Ministry of Ecclesiastic Affairs, where that ministry deals with the recreational and spiritual or religious side of cannabis. And we really want to get more information on that side. So we would have, gotten a lot of clarity where the medicinal side is concerned and some of the issues are concerned. But we now just, want to get more into what is happening with we've just learned that the recreational side is not legal. And so that, is going to be another discussion, maybe the next conversation that we have here on the platform. And we are going to have to now figure out some more things in relation to the spiritual or religious side and why that is not necessarily so much on the agenda. So we really want to hear from the horse's mouth the same way so we can have that level of exchange and debate. Ira and the team, if you guys are ready, yes, I am ready. So just, let me know that you are ready to log me out, and I am ready to make that exodus. So it was really a pleasure being here on this edition of Real Entertainment Network. So,
It's
people,
inspirational, educational,